It's time for Tab Talks, your weekly conversation about matters of faith. I'm your host, Jennifer Rash.
And I'm your co-host, Debbie Campbell.
We are diving in again about the current racial tensions happening in our nation and the conversations around all of that, how we as believers can be thinking through, talking about, working through all of this. And we've invited three of our younger staff members at Tab Media to join us to help us see from their perspectives, from their angles, what life is like, talking about all this, processing, understanding. So welcome, Jessica, Hannah, Myriah. Jessica Ingram is our event coordinator. Hannah Munoz is our digital editor, and Myriah Synder is our digital storyteller. So welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right. So we are all over in a few different states here and working hard. Myriah also actually full-time serves with our sister publication over in Georgia, Serving Georgia Baptist. She's with the Christian Index and just helps us out on the side with a lot of our Instagram stories. So thanks for taking some time with us too there, Myriah. Wow. All right. We are dealing with a lot of things right now. In 2020, we could go into all kinds of topics, but I wanted to specifically focus this segment on the racial tensions and how the three of y'all are processing that, how you're working through your faith with where you're coming to and all the angles, but also where are your safe spaces to talk about this? And so just, Jessica, I'll let you start. Myriah, go second, and Hannah third. Y'all just kind of round robin, describe what's going through your minds and how you're processing.
Well, it's all been very overwhelming for the past several months. It's feel like it's like a constant, and it's, my own personal issues. Like I feel like I'm constantly being confronted with like stuff that I believe is the Holy Spirit convicting me and, trying to convince me to like reevaluate things. It's definitely grown my relationship with God a lot because I have spent so much time in prayer and so much time studying scripture, just trying to understand and trying to see things through God's eyes and have his heart for all the people, for the for the African Americans who are being oppressed, for the white supremacists, to see them through God's eyes, whether I agree with them or not, to see them as God's people and to pray for them and to just explore more of just how God would view the situation and what Jesus, what would Jesus do, kind of in this. And so it's definitely stretched me. I'll admit that. But it's been in a good way for sure. I've grown more, I've grown closer to God. I've, dug into the word, and it's been good. It's been very good for me, and in learning how to address it and how I can help and, how I can be a part of the change that needs to happen.
Yeah, I think for me, there are just many ways that's kind of helped me spiritually. First of all, it's all really, really heavy. And anytime I enter into a conversation, I just feel heavy and feel weighted down. I feel like that's probably an appropriate way to feel talking about these things. And so for me, it's been nice for me to have to learn to grow and to take myself out of it, to not be personally offended, because I have never realized how many people I disagree with in my Facebook feed. Like, I'm in the way I'm like, I just want to be on Instagram, not Facebook anymore, and so for me not to take personal offense and realize that, these are people that taught me in Sunday school growing up and that have loved me my whole life. And so understanding that we can have a different opinion here and you're not a bad person and what you've done in my life isn't, invalidated. And I think learning to give a lot of grace. I've started mimicking, my pastor preached a great sermon, and I'm like, you dealt with that so great. He was asking what I thought about it afterwards, and like, there's no, like, I have no critique because you dealt with it with such grace. Or even our young adult pastor, just the way he acts with grace towards people. And honestly, I've just been trying to mimic them, and it is really, really hard because I don't like giving grace a lot. I mean, I don't know anyone who loves it, but these people really do. And so learning to mimic the spiritual leaders in my life who are dealing with this well, sometimes imitation is, it's the best form of flattery, but it's also, that's how you become like that. So I think also another thing is saturating each of these conversations with the gospel. So why am I talking about it? Truth is, I'd rather just bury my head in the sand. And I feel like a lot of my life I've spent burying my head in the sand where I definitely shouldn't. And so learning to have the conversations, but understanding that it's all about the gospel. So whenever it's racial injustice, I need to understand that there are people behind every opinion that's out there, and that I'm called to love the people who are not in agreement with what I think they should be. I'm called to love the people who I think are just outright wrong and malicious. And so understanding that it's about the gospel, and I'm not going to reach someone with the gospel if they've seen an angry Facebook rant that shows no grace.
Wow.
So it's bigger than my opinion. But I'm also not going to reach someone with the gospel if I'm not speaking into situations where I should be speaking into them. So finding the balance and understanding the priority, I think, is what's been the biggest way to grow spiritually for me. And that means leaving Mariah's opinions out. And that's real hard to do, but it's been a growing process.
I agree. It's definitely been really, really growing. This isn't the first time that there's been racial tensions in the nation in my life. Obviously not in the history, but it's things that I've seen in my life. But at the time, I was likely too young to fully understand what was going on. And so at this point, there's still a lot of things that I don't understand, that I don't know, that I am learning. And I consider myself really, really blessed that I do have great pastors at the church that I'm at in Birmingham, but I've also got a really great pastor at my home church in Clarksville. And the things that he preaches on, I'm able to watch his sermons because they're on Facebook Live, and so that's been great. But the things that he posts on Facebook about just the world as it is right now, the nation as it is right now, are always coming from a gospel-centered and people-loving and just a really understanding point of view. And that has been so helpful that, like Myriah said, I'm trying to imitate what he's doing and what he's saying. And it's been kind of hard because there's been sometimes that I wonder, is this something that I should be speaking up on? Yes, it is. Okay, so then what do I say and how do I say it? And in what methods do I say it? Am I sharing it on Facebook every day, or do I focus on in-person conversations? So a lot of questions, but he has been someone that I've been able to turn towards. If I ever need to ask him a question, he's always there. But a lot of the times I'm just able to see what I need to see by the way that he posts and the things that he says in his sermons. So that has been really helpful to have someone like that I can turn to.
As you all mentioned, you've turned to your pastors, to, of course, the scriptures. Are there any other sources that are helping you get a balance on the racial tension that you look at, or that you've gone to, that kind of helps you understand a little more?
I think for me, personal accounts have been helpful. Because and I have my own perspective. I was raised in a rural community as a biracial child, so I have my own perspective. But hearing other people's perspectives has been really enlightening And that has helped me understand, because again, it's seeing people, and seeing stories. I remember I shared something on Facebook, and I've just started not commenting if I'm sharing something on Facebook. Like, I'll just leave that there and you guys can do with it as you want. But stories that I'm like, I can't believe that happened. I've experienced racism. So being like, wow, like that was a real thing and that actually happened to you. And so just, it hasn't been an official, site that I go to, like, okay, every time I need to think about this, I go here. It's just been listening to stories, whether it be blogs or even just conversations, have just been really, really helpful, because I'm a person who, you can give me all the facts you want. I like facts, but until there's a face with those facts, I just don't care. So whatever your opinion is, if you don't have a personal reason for it, then you just need to stop talking. And that's the way that I kind of go with it. So whenever there is a personal story, my heart gets invested because I love people and I see people behind it. And so that's just been one of the biggest things to me. I feel like that's maybe the only way that Facebook has been helpful this whole time, has been people sharing their stories.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's definitely more of just hearing people's stories and understanding what they came from and what they've experienced, so that you can understand and sympathize with them in their opinions. Everybody has a reason for whatever they believe, and whatever stance they take on something. And so I think it's just important to be able to have a conversation with them and hear not just their opinion, but why they believe that and the things that have led up to that, just so you can understand, a broader scope of the situation. And like Mariah said, so you can, sympathize and get your heart involved in that.
It's been nice. Facebook again, but it's a great place that you have just kind of naturally friends of different ages from different places who have different viewpoints, and hopefully friends that you have some sort of connection with and that you love, so you're able to hear differing viewpoints, and hopefully come at that with, this is a person that I know, there's a reason that they believe and are saying these things. And so you kind of, it's a place to get all of these differing viewpoints and to be able to have conversations with people in different areas of life. And that's been good.
You're listening to Tab Talks. I'm Jennifer Rash, and Debbie Campbell is with me here, and we are talking with 3 members of the Tab Media team, Jessica Ingram, Hannah Munoz, and Myriah Synder. We are discussing how to have a conversation about the racial tensions happening in our nation, and looking at it from a young adult viewpoint. You all have mentioned social media, but specifically Facebook. I'm curious if you could share with a grandparent your guidance, your tips on appropriate ways to have those conversations and share opinions on Facebook. What would be some of the tips you would share?
Don't say anything that you would not say to a person's face. And I think especially for grandparents, like that's great, because you're not going to be mean to someone's face. Like, you wouldn't. And so if you have an opinion, you're allowed to be fired up about it. Like, but be nice, like be kind. And as you're reading, like if you're talking to someone and they're upset about something, you're not naturally going to be angry at them for being upset about something. Like, your first response is, wow, I'm so sorry you're upset. So just interact with people on Facebook like you would real life. Like, it's not, don't hide behind your screens. And I think, that's the biggest. Also, if I'm talking to you and I tell you a fact that seems sketchy, you're probably not going to just believe me. You're going to go verify it. So do the same thing on Facebook. Like, verify the information you're being given and be nice. And that's to me, I mean, Facebook would be much nicer if everyone would just do that.
Mariah, you brought out a good thing, verify it. So as we're talking about grandparents, where is a good source, like for a grandparent to verify it before they just say, hey, did you hear this, or share it?
You know what?
Because it was on Facebook, right?
Yeah, they're going to share it. Hey, it's the truth. I saw it on Facebook. So is there a source that would be easy for a grandparent?
I mean, honestly, start with Snopes.com, because they have other links to other things. So just click away in that. And then
That's snopes.com, right? Snopes.com.
And then I think another one is just a general Google search and look for a major news source that has printed an article about it. So if it's something like you need to know this, well, someone else, like it's not an original thought by your Facebook friend who shared this. So someone else has covered this. So look at a major news source. Someone that you could also turn on TV. And to me, like I said before, like look at more than one. So don't just go like, oh, well, I like what they say usually. No, go to the other one. If that's naturally where you're inclined, go to the other one just to make sure. And I feel like that just gets rid of a lot of confusion, because you at least know that it's the truth. And whether or not they're leaning one way while telling the truth, you can usually dig up some sort of truth from that. So.
And we found too that it's so easy now to mimic news services and mimic reporters by posting on a site, but you can tell pretty easily if it's a legitimate news source. Number one, have you ever heard of it? That's one piece. And then two, if you have trouble finding the reporter's name and or even the source name, if it's just difficult to get to a lot of those things, you can know quickly that it's something to be a little bit leery of. And then, yeah, like Mariah said, just double check it. If it's news, it's going to be told in several places. So that's good. Well, what about when, when the angry opinions come on social media and the comments get fired up and people start going back and forth? What is that? Does that give you anxiety or tension, or does it make you want to turn away from it? What does it do to your hearts?
It gives me terrible anxiety. I mean, for that reason, I kind of avoid Facebook a lot during this time, just because everybody's got their opinion and most everyone is yelling about it on Facebook and being very unreasonable in listening to anyone else. And so you just scroll through comments and there's yelling, as much as you can yell in a comment, I guess. But it looks like yelling. There's people, I mean, they're calling people names, and it's stressful, and it also just kind of hurts your heart, especially when it's somebody that I know and two other people that I know from like church commenting back and forth on this post about, about whatever the situation is. And I'm like, I know y'all as a believer, and I don't think this is how you should be handling yourself. If someone else who didn't know that they were believers, or who did know they were believers and weren't believers themselves, would look at that and, would say, well, I don't really want to get involved in all that if this is how Christians treat each other. So it's very stressful, and I don't like it.
It's kind of like what you were saying too, Mariah, right? You were shocked.
Yeah, honestly, I found this magic thing where you can just mute people. And I have done that probably more than I should at this point, but that's at the end of this. I want to still love these people, and I want to have fond memories of these people that I grew up with. And this is drowning out the fond memories. So rather than getting anxiety about it, like, I didn't like what you said there. It really was mean. So I'm going to mute you now. And it's been nice. And they don't know. So it's not like I'm like burning any bridges here. I'm just them like, you're gone. I don't need to hear your opinion, because people are mean, and I'm really, really exhausted with all the mean people.
And that muting she's talking about is an actual function. You can go into your friend into the profile and mute that, which means like Mariah said, you're not getting rid of them. They're not going to show up in your newsfeed.
That's been nice. And usually the people that I have chosen to mute, it's been because they come into discussions and turn them into personal attacks and just massive arguments, when you are more than welcome to have your opinion. Everybody's got an opinion, and I think that you should share it, but you should be able to listen to other people. And when you're just coming in and just only defending your opinion and attacking everyone who's got someone or something that they think that's different, it's very off-putting. And so, yeah, I like to mute those people because I don't want that to ruin my image of them in my mind, even though they probably don't even know that they're doing that. But for me, I have to take a little break and just remember that I'm gonna take a little break, and we'll come back and hopefully it'll be better.
Do you have a safe space? Do you have a spot where you guys can hash all of this out?
Yeah, I've noticed with my friends, and what's funny is that there's a lot of different opinions in my friend groups, but we seem to give a lot of grace as we're discussing these things, and it's enlightening because my friends are like, I like, how you brought an extra opinion in here, and you didn't just come at this harshly. And I like seeing even the people that I disagree with, like I like seeing how they got to that, because I haven't thought of everything in the world from every perspective. So
come on, Mariah, surely.
I'm working on it, but and so I think that's been nice. And also with my family, and we started, just disagreeing like years ago on things, and so it's been nice and like to be able to talk about these things and hear their perspective also, because I respect them so much. And so like just it is basically the safe spaces that I would bring up any issue. I can bring these into as well, and I get treated with the same grace that if I come in having a Mariah meltdown, or if I come in wanting to talk about, racial tension, I can have the same grace in those spaces. And so that's been a blessing for me.
Jessica,
Yeah.
you have a safe one?
Yeah, I agree with that. I have been blessed with a friend group that I've had for a really long time, and some of us do have differing opinions on things, but because we love each other and we're friends first, and we love each other first, and then so we can sit down and talk about things and address issues without it turning into like an insult fest or yelling or just disagreements. We can actually just calmly and reasonably explain like why I feel this way, and they can tell me why they feel this way. And so it's good. I think it's important to have relationships with people who feel differently than you, because you can see you're getting more than one point of view. And it's a safe space, even though it may not be a safe space in the way that like everyone here agrees with me. It's a safe space where I can kind of work through the issues myself without them like forcing like, you have to believe this or we're kicking you out of the group. And my family's also another one that I always enjoy talking to, because when you're raised with people, they're your family. Like, there's not much you can't talk about with your family. My parents have seen me like sob over dumb stuff. So it's like, of course I can sit down and have conversations about politics, and, they can express their views and I'll express my views, and we will, agree on some things, maybe disagree on some things, but it's okay because they're my family.
And yeah, same here. My family is a great one because I'm able to talk with my parents about things and we may agree and we may disagree, but I know that they love me and they know that I love them, and I'm just seeking opinions on things that I'm not sure of, or trying to understand maybe something that I disagree with. And then there's a group of Christian friends that I have, and I think that is really important, that I've got these two groups of Christian people that I'm able to go to. And like Jessica said, it's not a safe space as in we all agree with each other, and so I don't have to defend my opinion or anything. It's a safe space where I feel like I can listen and I can be heard.
And what a treat, because that's where you are going to grow. If you can't express those opinions and try to work through them, you can't grow, you can't develop, you can't get the perspective you need, because being shut down or being a force that everybody's on the same page, you really are going to get kind of just tightly put in a little bowl there and not be able to go outside of it. So good for y'all, and thank you for teaching us and sharing with us and helping us see the importance of those kinds of conversations. I've always said that sometimes I needed to say things out loud just to realize how bonehead it was, but until I say it out loud, I can't get it all out. But being a writer, we can write and see that too. So I think somehow getting the words out, getting the thoughts out, even if you end up adapting or changing, it's important. So having that, I love that all three of you had the same concept for a safe space. It's not that it's a preaching to the choir kind of scenario where everybody's going to be going, yeah, but you actually might have to articulate why you're thinking what you're thinking, and that will in itself take it to a new level. All right, well, we're going to have to wrap this up here. I could talk to you guys all day. Mariah, Hannah, Jessica, thank y'all, and thank you all for listening. Tab Talks will be back with you next week.